What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you are having a fantastic week, as always. If you just heard my dog in the background, she's kind of waking up from a nap, going to sleep. I don't know. Weird timing. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for downloading and listening to the podcast. I appreciate you guys' support, as always. And if it's a little quiet or whatever, or just a weird vibe, I'm trying to be a little quiet, or a little more quieter than usual, just because I am recording a little late at night. This is almost immediately after the AEW Dynamite show. Well, that's not quite true. It's about an hour or so later on. But anyway, guys, there's a lot that I have to say about it. I have a lot of weird feelings about tonight's show. So yeah, and I kind of wanted to just get this done and out of the way, and kind of get this out there and see what you guys think, and just kind of go from there. But as always, you can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS, and follow the show on Twitter at KickAshPodcast_. But with that being said, first, before I do get into the Dynamite show itself, I want to touch on this article that I came across, and shout out to ProWrestling.net for the transcription and the article that I'm going to kind of read off to you guys here. It was an interview that CM Punk did with Justin Barrasso from Sports Illustrated, which is pretty cool. It was published today on the 24th of August, which is Kobe Bryant Day. Not officially. Officially, it's I think it was officially declared on the 23rd officially, which is his birthday. But I mean, come on, like 8 and 24, like come on, dude has 2 days. He's a legend. Rest in peace, Kobe. But anyway, this is not a basketball podcast. But with that being said, guys, the article, like I said that circling back, that I wanted to read off to you guys, was an article, or an interview rather, that Punk did recently. So after last week's Dynamite, because they kind of referenced something regarding the Hangman Page interview. So we'll get right into it. And again, shout out and thank you to ProWrestling.net, Jason Powell, for the article transcription here. So he says that AEW World Champion CM Punk spoke with Justin Barrasso of Sports Illustrated and was asked if he is creatively fulfilled in AEW and whether he enjoys working with the roster of wrestlers. Punk goes on to say, quote, "Yes, 100%. You tried not to put too much stock in internet rumors, but for AEW, I definitely think that's part of our audience. Twitter's not real life, though. On top of that, a lie makes its way around the world twice before the truth puts its boots on or gets out of bed. If I addressed every rumor, I'd be here all day. I love AEW. It's not a competition of who loves it more, or who's the heart and soul, or who's this and who's that. AEW allowed me a second chance to do what I do best, and that's professionally wrestle," end quote. So, I mean, yeah, guys, and like I said on the last podcast, with the craziness of the Punk rumor, and then last week's angle leading into this week, it's just, wrestling is weird, man. Wrestling is a clusterfuck, so, and that's why I personally love it, and everything is shades of gray, you know what I mean, or the vast majority of things. So, I personally don't, there's so many reasons, right, like, why would Punk be upset in AEW? And again, we're not going to go off on that tangent because we'll be here forever. And I do want to get this done tonight for you guys, but I don't know. It just everything's just been weird, especially tonight, and that's going to be the theme of probably what I say later on regarding the Dynamite show. It's just a weird vibe, weird feeling, just weird everything. Stemming from last week and probably from prior to that, but especially last week and then going into this week. But moving on, Jason Powell continued with the article stating, Punk also spoke about his AEW Dynamite comments regarding, quote, Hangman Adam Page. "That's what I'm here to do, make people want to see what happens next," Punk said. "I'm trying to sell tickets to the live events. That goes back to me saying Twitter isn't the real world. Twitter is a bunch of people that don't really care about your opinion. They want to find like-minded opinions that share their worldview. I'm trying to tell stories, sell tickets, and get people to tune into Dynamite," end quote. Punk was also asked if he's at full health heading into tonight's unification match with Jon Moxley. "It's a prickly topic," he said. "I've had problems with the way my health was handled in the past. I've been devoting all my waking time to getting my foot back to 100%. I will be cleared I will be cleared by my surgeon. Whether that means I'm 100% or not, that there's where the tricky answer comes in, end quote. And then you can, I guess the full story is over at sportsillustrated.com, si.com. So you can check it out there if you're interested in that. Yeah, and again, to me, like, if Punk is so unhappy, and Pal's point of view even references it too, like, if Punk is so unhappy with AEW, right? Like, why is he doing promotional work for it? Like, we all know Punk, right? Like, Punk, I mean, no, none of us really know Punk, but we have a good idea of Punk, right? Like, if he doesn't want to do something, he's just not going to do it, right? That's obvious. So if he, my opinion, in my take, if he is so anti-AEW, he's on the outs with Tony Khan, he wanted to quit, he was on the verge of walking out, like, all this stuff, right? Why would he still be doing interviews, right? And even if he did this interview and let's say everything that he said is complete false and complete fabrication, which I don't personally think so, but bear with me, guys. If it was, and he's just doing this just to, whether he was obligated to via his contract or whatever, fine, but like, I don't buy that. Like, I don't buy Punk doing an interview and just, I don't know, and I could be completely wrong. I could be completely off base, and the Punk could have just bullshitted this whole interview. Which, I don't know. My take, I don't know. I'm not in the boat that Punk was on the verge of quitting AEW and walking out and all this stuff. Like, can he be unhappy? Yeah, like, sure. Like, he can have moments of being unhappy or wanting something to go a different way. Like, don't we all? Like, I don't know. Like, there's been plenty of times where, like, I have been, like, maybe unhappy with the way something went, but I'm not on the verge of quitting or walking out or anything. Like, I don't know. Like, it's, I don't know. And again, we're not going to dive fully into that, but I thought it was interesting with the timing of the article, and then, of course, now with Dynamite in our rearview mirror, and obviously we're going to be breaking that down here in a second and getting into that. It was just interesting, and I thought it was, timing-wise, again, that it was interesting that he even did an interview before Dynamite itself for tonight. But moving on to Dynamite itself, guys, we will break down the show here really quick. Forgive me if I don't go too in depth for like hold for hold or anything like that, but I definitely, obviously, I'm gonna hit the main topics here. They were at the, I believe it's pronounced the Wolstein Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Jim Ross, Excalibur, Taz, and Tony Schiavone were all on commentary. So it looks like Jim Ross is back to doing the full show. I kind of liked it when he was kind of being held off for the second part of the show. It kind of gave the second half of the show and the second hour just like a main event type feel, a different vibe to it. But it is what it is, and these guys are still pretty good together. So just a side note from me. But they were pretty much just like hyping up the show and giving a brief rundown. We ended up opening the show though with Jericho making his way down to the ring. Of course, the fans continued to sing his music. I bring that up because there was an article, or forgive me, I don't remember exactly where I read it from, but Jericho had mentioned somewhere that he had wanted to either he wanted to create a remix, or he had already had a version of, like, a remixed version of Judas that he wanted to play and debut rather for like his heel Jericho side, but apparently Tony Khan nixed that. I don't remember exactly where I got that from, so I can't be 100% certain on the source, but just an interesting, if that's true, an interesting tidbit. It is, in devil's advocate, right? Like, it is very fun when you're in person to be able to sing his song, so I totally get why Tony Khan would want to keep that, and just continue how he's been going, right? Like, Jericho's obviously been a bad guy for quite some time now, but we've continued to sing his song, so I see both sides of it. But if that's the case, I appreciate Jericho wanting to change it up, though, because it's for him. I'm sure, regardless of how many times you hear it, it's still cool to have so many fans chanting and actually knowing your song, right? So, but moving on, Jericho essentially was trying to get Garcia to come out and apologize for what happened last week and for the physicality for last week. And it was pretty much giving Garcia a way out, saying he was emotional from the match that he just had, and it was kind of trying to give him, like I said, a way out, but Garcia made his way out to the ring. I believe he was wearing a shirt that said Buffalo Kids or something like that. So, because obviously he's most likely from Buffalo. It's just cool. I like seeing the wrestlers be able to wear like whatever shirt they want, and it doesn't always have to be like their merchandise. You know, they just have that freedom. So that's always just a cool sight to see. But I loved everything that Garcia said. Like, he came out and pretty much just broke down why last week was so special to him, and what Bryan Danielson means to him as a wrestler, and what his goals were, and just really kind of cut what I thought was a really great babyface promo. To me, it was kind of reminiscent of the MJF promo that MJF had when he kind of let us in a little bit and told us that, you know, pretty much how he grew up, right? And how at one point he was made fun of, and he would go home crying, or I'm pretty certain he said he would go home crying. And a Friday he was really made fun of, or something to that effect. He was really upset by other kids at school, and he remembered that he was meeting CM Punk later on that night, and that made everything okay, blah, blah, blah. For whatever reason, though, tonight's promo with Daniel Garcia just really made me think of that MJF promo specifically. And I really liked it. You know, I thought this was a really strong opening segment. I thought Garcia was just perfect and just magnificent on the mic, and he held his own. And it's crazy. Like me, I thought that they were going to drag this whole JAS thing with Garcia involved out longer. So I'm happy they're kind of slowly but quickly, and quicker than I expected, obviously, like I was saying. They're pulling the trigger on it faster, so credit to them. Before we get to that point, Bryan Danielson did end up making his way to the ring to kind of stick up for Garcia and just kind of give Jericho, continue to instigate Garcia. But when Danielson made his way out to the ring and obviously took Garcia's back, he was like pretty much saying, you know, like, sorry again, guys, if you hear that my dog, she decided to come over here. But Jericho and Bryan Danielson were essentially fighting for Daniel Garcia's love. You know, Danielson, I almost said Daniel for Bryan, Daniel Bryan, whatever. It's a long night, guys. And I thought about that. A quick side note, guys, I've been thinking about that. You know, I've been doing really well with not calling him Daniel Bryan, but once it creeps back into your brain, it's like, you try to make a mental note to not say what you're trying not to say, and it's a mindfuck every time. But Danielson said that he saw that Garcia's mentor here is trying to bully him into saying that he's a sports entertainer, and was like, listen, you can be whatever you want to be, and he respects their wrestling from last week and agrees with all the people who have been chanting that Garcia is a wrestler, and he is. And Jericho was pretty much just kind of needling him on and demanding that he says he's a sports entertainer. So they were, again, trying to figure, like, you know, kind of metaphorically pulling Garcia back and forth, right? And then out of nowhere, Garcia just blows up and tells him to stop, and that he's got his hero on one side and his mentor on the other, and he can't make a decision right here, right now, and to leave him alone. Chris actually did grab him, and Garcia snapped and shoved him down. So that was that. And the crowd broke out and chanted, "You deserve it," with Garcia leaving, and just Garcia left. And like I was about to say earlier, I was kind of surprised. Before I get ahead of myself again, that led to essentially Brian and Chris essentially just setting up their match for All Out and getting that taken care of. And I believe it was Jericho who mentioned, or no, I think it was actually Danielson who brought up the whole Stu Hart dungeon and referenced that Jericho is the last survivor of the dungeon and all that again. So, but then Jericho really had a solid promo here as well. I love just the intensity that he showed here as well. So yeah, they just set up officially their match at All Out, which is a surprise and it isn't. Like I said, I was kind of expecting Garcia and maybe Jericho to have a match, and especially since we just saw Garcia and Danielson twice now, I figured we may be going in the route of having Jericho and Garcia whether you want to have that be like their official blow off match or present it in a way that Jericho's like, okay, like, or if you want to, if you say that you're one of the best professional wrestlers in the world, like face me, and kind of go that route. So I'm just surprised that in that aspect that we are getting Jericho and Danielson as opposed to Jericho and Garcia. But I'm here for it. I think it's going to be a really kick ass match, Jericho and Danielson. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. After that, we got the first matchup on the card, Dax Harwood facing off against Jay Lethal. Both of their counterparts ended up going back to the backstage. Backstage rather. Which is cool. I love, even though that they are obviously tag team wrestlers, that none of the tag team partners or anyone, for instance, like on Jay Lethal's side, stayed at ringside. I liked that, I kind of wish AEW would do that more going forward. But yeah, just a little small thing that kind of stood out to me as well. This match was really good, though. This match was a really solid, good wrestling match, and I really enjoyed it. I think Dax Harwood is continuing his run for making a claim to be Wrestler of the Year, singles Wrestler of the Year, which is crazy if you think about it, since he's in a tag team and you never would have, if you, like thinking maybe a year ago, maybe a year's, too much, but maybe go back a year and a half, 2 years ago. Like, me personally, I probably wouldn't have pegged him to be in that running at least, but shout out to him, man. This has always been in him and he's just now having an opportunity to shine, or he really put in the work and he's just gaining more and more skills and then what have you. But I think it's the former. I think it's something that has just been inside of him. I think they've obviously been a dope and a kick-ass tag team for quite some time now, going back to their NXT Black and Gold days, right? But man, like, Dax has just been on another level, so I really enjoy seeing him in singles matches, and I love the finish of the match here, with Jay Lethal getting the pinfall with an O'Connor roll, and he of course was pulling the trunks. But I like that because Jay Lethal, in my opinion, kind of needed the victory more so here, since he's obviously a singles wrestler. Not that should have anything to do with it. But Dax is so solid, and he obviously has an out here too, right? With the handful of trunks, and earlier in the match, Sanjay Dutt had made his way down to the ring, and of course did get on the apron to try to cause an interference. So you did have that moment in the match as well, but it was just such a good solid wrestling match. I really enjoyed it. So shout out to those guys. But after the match, Sanjay Dutt got on the mic and said he's got a message for Dax and his big dumb buddies. He said he never said who was in their trios match at All Out. Rather, it'll be Jay Lethal teaming with two close personal friends of theirs, the Motor City Machine Guns. And man, like, this got a big pop for me, man. I was always a big Motor City Machine Guns fan. I'm not gonna lie and say that I followed them, like, I followed their career within the recent years. But man, like, back in the day, like when I was watching TNA, man, like, they were just a team that always stood out to me. So they have a special place in my heart. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that, and I'm just happy they're back together as a tag team. And yeah, I think that's gonna be a kick-ass match. But moving forward, Tony Schiavone had referenced at some point that he had a major announcement regarding a championship. So that was, obviously something to make note of. So back from the commercial, we had Thunder Rosa backstage with Tony Schiavone. She was just devastated, bro, and just completely disheveled. She was literally shaking and crying, saying that she's hurt and she has to step down as AEW Women's World Champion, and she hopes Toni Storm wins the interim title and promises she'll come back bigger and stronger, and she'll have a chip on her shoulder. They set up a fatal four-way match for All Out for the interim Women's Championship. They're going to have, I believe the competitors are Toni Storm, Dr. Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and gosh, I'm blanking on the fourth now. I want to say the fourth is Sheeta, but I could be off on that, so I'll see if I can pull that up here in a couple minutes, guys. But after that, we had the father versus son match, which was the first in AEW history. They touted, whatever it's called. It was Billy Gunn versus Colton Gunn. We did get the the entrance rather from the Acclaimed, which I'm big fan of. Love the Acclaimed, dope guys. Really big fan of Max Caster, obviously. Dude's just really entertaining, and he's really good on the mic, Like I think his little raps are good, so shout out to him, Like they're doing it, and like I've mentioned before, Anthony Bowens is really good. It's not like, at least in my opinion, it's not obvious which one of those guys would be like the breakout star and which guy would be like, oh, like you'd be questioning, like, is he gonna make it, type of thing. Like to me, they kind of seem on even playing fields. So yeah, I mean that I guess could change going forward, but at least right now, I think they're just both good, and they both just play off of each other, and just they're both solid partners, and Tony Khan did a awesome bang up job for seeing this early on in the very early stages of AEW and putting them together as a team. But I'm not gonna break down the match, guys. Colton, I'm not here for Billy and versus his sons. To me, like no matter how you spin it, it just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, like I still feel at some point Billy is gonna turn on the Acclaimed, and this whole thing is gonna be like another ruse, and just I don't know, like I don't know. And maybe not, I mean, Colton did give his father a low blow. They obviously accepted the card from Stokely Hathaway, so I don't know. It's a weird thing, but to me, like it's just I don't feel like Billy Gunn is really gonna be with the Acclaimed long term. It's just and not that it's a weird pairing, but it just seems unnecessary to me, and that's kind of where I'm coming from with it. So yeah, I think the Guns, like his sons, Colton and Austin, obviously, or not obviously, but to me it's obvious they needed Billy more than the Acclaim. But that's all I have to say about that. Moving on, the Gun boys, I do have to mention, did like I said, continued to beat down their dad, and Swerve in Our Glory made the save and ran into kick the ass boys off of their father and save the Acclaimed and all that stuff. So that continued later on. I'll just kind of reference it now and get it out of the way. They did set up as the tag team championship match at All Out, Swerve in Our Glory versus the Acclaimed, it seems. So I just had mixed feelings on that, and I'll kind of express that more later on. But I don't know, guys, like it just feels forced. After that, we had Tony Schiavone again backstage with the Death Triangle and United Empire. Ospreay and Pac were going back and forth on the mic and pretty much just hyping and setting up what ended up being main event of the show. After that, we had Dr. Britt Baker, DMD versus Kylan King. Pretty solid match. I was at the Dark tapings this past weekend on Sunday, which I will just kind of, and forgive me guys, if you don't want to hear this rant that I'm about to go on, you can skip maybe 2-3-ish minutes, and I'll try to make a note to notate this in the breakdown, but I'm going to kind of preface it first, before I get into the negativity of it, and guys, I try to be as positive as I can, right, or at least as fair, right, but it was just absurd, and just completely unnecessary. So I'm at the AEW Dark tapings on Sunday, and like I was saying, I give AEW so much credit. It's free tickets. It's first come first serve, right? You can find the tickets at Eventbrite. So at least that's where I find the ones here for Orlando. So it's first come first serve. Pretty much the second they go quote on sale, you need to snatch them up. And I was lucky enough to get a set of tickets. So obviously I went. I don't know if I'm gonna go back unless they change up the formula, change up something. They break it up into 2 3-hour sessions. So the first session is from 2 to 5, and the second session is from 7 to 10. So you have a 2-hour break in between, which is very much needed, right? And it's needed for everyone involved, and it just makes sense. However, that's not the issue. The issue is the totality. So this past weekend on Sunday, they had the second session in the past, especially the last session that we had here in Orlando, the second session only ended up going maybe an hour and a half. I remember it ending like around 8:30, maybe 8:45, and that was good because we had just set through the first set of tapings, which was 3 hours. So at that point, in totality, we had about what, 4.5, maybe closer to 5 hours. So we're good. You know, you're there literally all day, so you're ready to leave at that point. So I thought that was a happy medium, and me personally, I really enjoyed that. This was the exact opposite. So the tapings were supposed to end at 10 o'clock. Did not end at 10 o'clock. We had, I believe, Tony Khan came out around 9:50, 9:45 maybe, and was just kind of like hyping us up and getting us energized and trying to, just give us more life. Because obviously, everyone, and it's not just us, right? Like, I'm sure the talent, the crew, everyone backstage are probably more exhausted than we are. I mean, all we're doing, at the end of the day, is just sitting there watching. They're actually performing, so I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh my god, I've been doing all this manual labor all day, like it's obviously not that, right? But it's just taxing and tiring, So with that being said, he came out and said, we're about to, we have one more set of tapings to go, or he didn't necessarily say that, but he indicated we had one more show to tape, essentially. And I'm just sitting here thinking like, okay, like, what? And mind you, we had already seen the same group of talent in the same, and obviously not the same exact matches, but you see the same talent in different rotations, right? So you're going to see your Fuego del Sols like 5 times, or not necessarily 5 times, but like 2 to 3 times normally for each wrestler, and they normally space it out. So you're not going to see them in one match leave and then in the next match. No, they normally do a really good job at, like I said, spacing it out. Again, this show, the exact opposite. I don't know what the fuck happened, and forgive me for being so negative about it, but it was just complete nonsense and just completely unnecessary. I'm still trying to be, not nasty, because there's no reason to be nasty, right? So the thing that really pissed me off, and maybe not even pissed me off, but it was just like you got to the point where you were just so over it. We literally laughed in my section. So the Trust Busters, and I am a big believer in Parker Boudreaux. I think dude has a big future, and it's not anything against any of these individuals involved at all. The dude sitting beside me made a good point. He was like, I don't even want to see my mother 5 times in the same day, because during the second tapings, they had gotten to the point where we had saw them come out for the 5th time. Like, I think it was like 3 or 4 times, or 3 times in the first set of the tapings, and then at that point it was the second set and the second set of tapings, or the second time in the second set of tapings. So we're like, all right, like this is getting to be ridiculous now. And it was always some variation of the Trust Busters. So you're seeing the same talent, the same group come out at this point 5 times in the same day. You're hearing the same music, the same entrance 5 times in the same afternoon. So you're trying to play along, right? Like, you're trying not to be an asshole. You're trying to go along, for lack of better words. But the 5th time we were like, okay, like this is getting to be fucking ridiculous. Like in my section, like the dude in front of me, he was like, okay, and kind of like we were joking, and we were like, okay, like this is getting to be ridiculous. This is when the guy beside me said the thing about his mother. They left. Couple matches went by, they came back out. And again, it was a different variation. Like, at one point it would be Sunny Kiss, at one point it would be the Butler, they have a Butler now. At one point it was, Davari. So it was just different variations, but again, same music, same entrance, same people that you're seeing, and it's just tiresome. It's like, damn, like, we get it, Like, you're making it to the point where, like, I don't want to see them. Just because I'm so tired of it. And I don't want that. Like, I want to enjoy seeing all of them. But now I'm at the point where I don't want to see them for at least a month on any show. And I don't want to feel that way. The 6th time, we were like, okay, like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, this is, like, come on. The 7th time, we legit started laughing. And then the 7th time, that's when the person in front of me was like, okay, like, if they come out again, we all need to stage a walkout and just get it believe. And again, guys, like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I'm not that person. Like, and we were all joking because we were like, okay, this has to be it, right? Like, you just can't bring them back out, right? Like, there's no way. So they all go backstage, and then we get the next matchup. It was maybe 5 minutes or so. Nothing long. And that's the thing too, like you're getting multiple matches in Dark, and I appreciate that. So it's not like you're sitting through like long drugging matches or anything. It's like you're getting like quick matches, but it's I don't know. It's a weird thing. Like you'd have to be there to kind of get where I'm coming from. But guys, I shit you not. We're sitting there and it's kind of quiet, and the guy in front of me is like, man, wouldn't it be some shit if, and the second he says if, the Trustbusters logo pops up on the screen and their music hits. Everyone, and the shittiest thing too, and the funny part was like earlier when the guy in front of me made that comment and we all started laughing, like even the camera guy, maybe I'm not gonna say who, but one of the camera guys just kind of laughed it off, right? Because it was, and it's not like we're coming, like any of us were coming at this with like an ill intent, right? Or like, oh fuck you guys, like we hate you, anything like that. Like that's not the case at all. But it was just like, come on, like we're trying to be respectful, we're trying to be cool. But I shit you not, their logo pops up on the screen, the music plays, the camera guy looks over at our section, and at that point, like, I was already exhausted. At this point, it was already past 10 o'clock, and I was trying to play along again. Like, I was trying to wait for the main event, thinking, like, surely they had to be done. At this point, it was 10:15, 10:20. I'm like, oh my fucking god, like, this was supposed to be over at 10, like, we've been here all day, like, no, so I had to get up, guys. I got up and I went outside. I was just like, I'm over it. And so many other people in my section did too. And I really didn't think that they were going to. I told myself mentally, like, okay, like if the Trustbusters do come back out, or the fact, like, regardless, if it's the Trustbusters, but especially if it's them, again, no offense, just I didn't want to see you for the 8th time. Or if it's not the main event, I gotta go because I had work, I had shit I had to do. And at that point, I wasn't gonna get home till like after 11, blah, blah, blah. Like no one else's problem but my own, but like, gotta go. Bro, guys, like, just, I don't understand. And again, I obviously went over 3 minutes, so if you were looking forward to skipping that little rant, I am so sorry. I'm wrapping it up here now, but note to whoever listens to this, I appreciate the effort and the quality of the work that you guys put into these Dark tapings, and I appreciate what you're doing, but you cannot have the same act literally 8 times. Again, like the dude beside me said, he doesn't even want to see his mother 8 times in one day. It doesn't matter if it's CM Punk, if it's Dr. Britt Baker, it doesn't matter. Like, you don't want to see the same person, like, so many times. Like, I don't know, like, I get what you're doing, but, like, just like, like, I don't know, like, it was just bizarro world. So my rant with the Dark tapings are over. Again, I truly appreciate the tickets and everything like that, so I'm not trying to be, like, one of those, like, assholes and, like, one of those ungrateful people out there, but you get to a point, enough is enough, as the great Owen Hart once said, and it's time for a change. But back to AEW Dynamite itself, the Dr. Britt Baker DMD match versus Kylan King, that is what sparked my little rant there, because they did have a segment on Dark where they had a promo in the ring and they kind of set up or further set up their match here, and it was good. It was a good segment on Dark. So credit to both of them for that, and I think Kylan King really held her own there. So shout out to her for that. And I think I don't know if they have already signed her, but if they haven't officially, they being AEW, they really should. I think she'd be a really good asset to the division. But the Doctor herself does win via submission with the lockjaw. Nothing surprising there. After the match, Baker gets on the mic and says it's a shame about Thunder Rosa, but when she was the champion, she worked her entire reign with a broken friggin' wrist, because that's what champions do. And luckily for Toni Storm, she'll finally be on a pay-per-view with somebody who gives a damn. That of course sparked Toni Storm to come out. Jamie Hayter blindsided her from the back and beat her down as Rebel came down with a huge terrible towel, actually just a big towel, since they were in Ohio, and obviously Pittsburgh versus Ohio. So that was fun, I love just hamming it up. And I'm sorry, she did make her way down to the ring, so I'm pretty confident she is the 4th individual in that match now. But moving on to is when they had the Swerve in Our Glory and Acclaim stepping up backstage, setting up their tag team match. That is when we got to the AEW World Championship Unification match. And I was first blown away that we are having this match at 9 o'clock, because we had a few other things still left up on the lineup. We had the trios match, we had a segment with Ricky Starks being hyped, so either they were going to completely blow off those other scheduled segments, which would be cool, right? You know, like, to me that would have been cool. You have all these things planned but the championship match went so long you couldn't get to it, and it has like a real life vibe to it and a real life feel to it, so that could have been cool. So I was like, okay, cool, you know. Me personally, going into Dynamite, I thought they were either going to open the show with it or obviously close it with it being such a big match, and obviously that's a given main event. But I didn't see it being, I'll put it this way, I didn't see it being at the 9 o'clock hour with still a few things left up on the show itself. On the show itself, rather. So that kind of was the first thing that was kind of perplexing to me. But nevertheless, they made their way to the ring. Punk did climb to the top of the rope during his entrance and jumped down. Didn't favor either foot or anything like that. So that was a good sign, right? But anyway, Roberts made his introduction for both champions. CM Punk did kiss his title before he handed it off. I think he had done that in the past too. Like, I was trying to think back in WWE, so because I heard somewhere or on the PW Torch after show rather that I think it was Wade Keller who had said that he thought that was like maybe like a sign that he was going to lose or something to that effect, or maybe I heard that from somewhere else. Regardless, I heard that somewhere, guys. It's really late now. But yeah, like I didn't really read much into that. Just kind of something that I think a lot of champions do, just kissing the title. This match did not go long at all. The guys, they locked up. John hit him with a headbutt. CM Punk fired back with a roundhouse kick. But then all of a sudden he started screaming and clutching, went down and started holding the foot that he had planted. Not the foot that he made contact with the kick to Moxley, but the other foot that he had planted down, which I'm pretty certain was the one that was surgically repaired. Surgically repaired foot, I should say, and finished. After that, Mox hit him with a lariat, hit him with the overhead hammer and anvil elbows, just brutal elbows, rather, just stiff, just brutal. Started wrenching on the injured foot, hit the Death Rider, connected with the paradigm shift, and that was over. Sorry, guys, I was just reading my notes here. It's just, I'm still just so fucking shocked. Like, he hit the Death Rider, hit him with the paradigm shift, and then that was it. Like, it's over. Like, John Moxley won by pinfall with the paradigm shift, unifying the AEW World Championship. I don't know, man. I don't know, guys. Like, I have so many feelings about this. So, first of all, it's not, or whatever I'm about to say isn't in the ballpark of, I think a championship match should be at least 10, 15, 20 plus minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, anything like that. Like, I totally love the vibe and the feel that anything can happen at any time. Like, that's why I've enjoyed UFC fights, right? Like, that's the whole point. Like, you don't know when it's going to end. And I love that in wrestling too. Like, it makes, again, for must-see TV, and you can't step away at any moment. So yeah, like, if I hadn't already, and I'm sure if this wasn't a big match, like, there could have been a chance, like, I'm sure there's matches in the past who, like, it starts and you get up to go grab a drink really quick before it actually, like, gets into the meat and potatoes of the match, and this could have been one of those matches where you did that and it was over, like, I don't even know how long it went, maybe 5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. So that has nothing to do with it at all. My issue, and the thing that kind of really put a sour, like, note on the rest of the night for me, for whatever reason, it just kind of really deflated me, was the whole build-up and the whole, I don't want to say bait and switch, because it wasn't that, but just how it played out. And I'll preface again, too, by saying I'm willing to give AEW the benefit of the doubt, because they have done so many things right, and I'm not hating on them. I'm not saying this was complete bullshit. I'm totally intrigued and willing to see how this plays out, but I think as a fan, we're entitled to have our feelings and our opinions of anything, right? Like with any show too. Like for instance, with The Walking Dead, like I was a huge fan of that show. Like there's not a chance. Like at one point, like there wasn't a chance in how like I would miss that. Like me and my friends would be talking about it, like as it was going on. Like we watched the after show. Like like we were really into it. And then it got to a point where shit just started not making sense. They killed off certain characters that I still don't agree with. Shout out Glenn. And it just got to a point where I was just like, man, like I'm just over it. I don't like what they're doing. I'm not at that point. Obviously, I don't think I ever will be with wrestling just in general. Wrestling is just different. I have a different type of love for wrestling, but I say that comparison to say that like it's okay for us to not like a specific show or a specific outcome, or at least I feel like it should be okay. And if it's not, then guys, let me know. But for me personally, like it really deflated me, and the reason it deflated me was because I feel like it doesn't make sense regardless of how it goes, and that's why I'm willing to wait and see how it goes. But hear me out, and this is why I'm so deflated. Whether let's say the injury is real, right? Like let's say Punk was 100% clear to come back and everything was good to go, and he either re-injured the same foot or injured the other foot. That sucks. They had to call an audible in the ring. That sucks. I totally get it. If that's what ends up being the case going forward, then hey, cool. I totally understand. Obviously, shit happens and you have to make changes on the fly. That's a completely different story then, and we'll talk about that on a later show. If it wasn't a real injury and this was the whole idea going into it, and you completely removed your AEW All Out main event from Chicago out of nowhere last week, put it on the next week's Dynamite, making it obviously this week. You didn't have it open your show. You didn't have it in the main event. It was smack dab in the middle of the show, around the 9 o'clock for us Eastern time, folks, hour, maybe a few minutes after. And it lasted, maybe 3-5 minutes, and it just didn't make sense. And you have, Punk having another injury angle. So now we have Punk, who's injured. We have Omega, who just came back, but is still injured. That's, like, the first thing commentary says to us. It's just, I don't get it. And what's the big payoff, Like, okay, Punk's injured. Punk comes back next week. He's like, that's bullshit. I was injured. It was a fluke. Not a fluke, but he was like, I'm injured. I'm gonna do rehab for however many days. I don't even think we would have enough time. I think next week would be the last show, right? Or yeah, today is it's the 25th. It's after midnight, but it was the 24th. So you have next week's show, which is the go home show. So you could have Punk come out and say, no, that's bullshit. I'm healed up enough. Like it was just a fluke injury. I just tweaked it. I'm fine. Like I was able to get clear. Blah blah blah. Whatever he's gonna say, right, to justify and like downplay the injury. You could have the rematch at All Out, but if that's what we're getting to, and that was the whole idea with all this, and I'm just like, what the fuck, like that? No, like why would you do that, man? Like that's just too convoluted. It just doesn't make any sense. Like unless this whole thing was an idea to get ratings, which again, hey man, like your TV deal is going to be like the bulk of your revenue, right? Unless that content rights, and that's what it is for WWE. And obviously AEW wants to do as good as they can in the ratings to get a better deal going forward. That should be the whole goal for anyone, right? Not just AEW. So I get that. I get why you want to put the best product that you can on TV. I'm not even against that. It's just, it doesn't make sense why all of a sudden last week, during the middle of the show, it's like, oh, by the way, we're going to actually have the all-out main event next week on Dynamite. We get to Dynamite, and I was pumped, man. I was looking forward to this. I tried to make sure that I got back on time. Yeah, so, like, me personally, like, I made arrangements to make sure I was going to watch it tonight before, I saw any spoilers or anything after the show or after the fact. And for it to come on around the 9 o'clock hour and for it to just kind of end the way it did and it not make sense. And what kind of gets me too is we did get a follow-up promo from Moxley already backstage, and it wasn't even anything that set up his opponent going forward at All Out. It just, it's a weird feeling. It's a weird vibe. I don't know. And again, like I said earlier, that's why I wanted to preface it with saying I don't hate it. I'm not shitting on it. It kind of just deflated me. I don't know. And again, too, I think it's like the totality of looking back on it, too, because I was really looking forward to the story and the build-up of this match going forward. And when they just completely rescheduled it from it being Labor Day weekend to this week, we lost out on a couple more weeks of story building up to it, too. So I think that's why I was looking forward to it as well. So I don't know, guys. This is just a lot of kind of immediate-ish feelings about it. And just kind of going forward with the show, too, it just really kind of changed the whole vibe and the whole mood of the show for me, playing out. But not again, trying not to be a Debbie Downer for you guys, because the main event, which I'll just kind of get to now, was just fucking dope. And I think they just fucking killed it. I don't know how Will Ospreay is a human being. Between him, Rey Fenix, and Pac, like, they're just another level. Like, I don't understand how they do the things they do. I'm not even going to attempt to try to break down this match. It was a fucking fire match. So if you didn't see it, you have to go see it. There's just multiple spots in here that Will Ospreay did specifically that it's just, I don't know how he does it. There was a point in the match, I believe it was in this one, where we did finally get the reveal. Yeah, it was with Pac, of Kip Sabian, the guy who's been sitting at ringside for God knows how long now, what, a year, and the cardboard box. Pac had gotten distracted by Kip Sabian, who he thought was at ringside under the cardboard box. It was a decoy. Kip attacked him from behind, and I guess is set up their feud going forward. Most likely, probably for the All Atlantic Championship or whatever that thing is, that title is called. Which I don't even know if it got referenced here tonight. I don't even know. Like, I'm too tired, guys, to look up and see if he came out with a title. I'm sure he probably did. He being Pac, I don't see why he wouldn't. It just wasn't emphasized. Was this the first time we've seen him since he won the championship? Or was it last week? I don't know. Everything's kind of blurring right now, guys. But again, it wasn't emphasized enough that he is the All Atlantic Championship if we're supposed to take that thing seriously. You know what I mean? So, with that being said, the United Empire did get a surprise victory, in my opinion, via pinfall with a springboard Oscutter onto Rey Fenix for the W. Post-match, the Elite made their entrance to pretty much just do a stare down with the United Empire. So yeah, and that pretty much set up the match that we're going to get in what I hope is the eventual one-on-one match with Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega, which is just going to be fucking, just take my money now. I'll just pre-order that shit now. Tell me what pay-per-view and I'll pre-order it now when that match is going to be. Again, guys, so sorry if this is kind of a more quiet episode, or if I'm not getting too detailed on specific things. But I had to at least get that little, I guess, maybe immediate feelings, that rant that I had in there out of my system before we move on. So again, thank you guys so much for listening and downloading to the show. I appreciate everything that you guys do and the support. But as always, I hope you have a fantastic week, and we'll talk in a couple days.